In this presentation, what we're looking at is how to make effective use of data in one of the essay style questions in a Unit 1 exam. The paper that we're going to be looking at is Pierre's personalised t-shirts. This particular question comes from the January 2012 paper. We're looking at the last question, which is a question on business objectives. It's particularly important to learn how to make effective use of data because it's actually the quickest way to pick up marks in this style of question. You're going to need a pen and paper, and you're going to need a calculator because obviously we are going to be doing a calculation, and it would be really useful for you to have a copy of Pierre's personalised t-shirts. I said this is from January 2012. It is available on Moodle in the same folder as all of these presentations, and it's also available on the AQA website, and you just look for January 2012 AS Business. Okay, so if you could press pause now while you select those items. Okay, so this is the question that we're looking at here. I said already it's from January 2012 and the question is on Pierre's personalised t-shirts. I'm going to scroll down now to the very last question in the paper, which was question 2C. Don't forget the big questions always come at the end, the essay style questions come at the end of the paper. So we're looking at the second section, the questions are 2A, 2B, and we're looking at specifically 2C. I'm just saying all this until we get there. Okay, nearly there. Here we go. Right, so the question is, Pierre set himself one primary objective to achieve an annual profit of £15,000 in his second year. If Pierre keeps to the original options chosen, figure 1, do you believe that he will achieve this objective? Justify your view. You should use calculations to support your answer. Now, quite a few important things here. First of all, they're saying you should use calculations to support your answer. They are really expecting some type of calculation in there. That's not to say that you can't pick up marks without calculations. You can. If you do a really good justified argument for why you think he can or cannot reach that particular objective without calculations, you may still pick up a few marks. But the reality is we're talking here about profit, so it does make sense to do a calculation. It does say he set himself one primary objective, so that's the only one that we're focusing on. There are no subsidiary objectives to consider here. Sometimes they'll give you more than one objective, but not on this occasion. We're looking at an annual profit, so make sure that you don't accidentally calculate it for a quarter or for a month. And we're looking to see whether or not he can achieve £15,000, and specifically in his second year, 2013. So be cautious here. We're not talking about the first year of trading, we're talking about his second year of trading. Absolutely essential that you highlight all of these key pieces of information and make sure that you don't calculate it for the wrong year. Okay, now it says Pierre keeps to the original options chosen, figure 1. So they're telling you where to go, which is figure 1. That's quite useful for you really, because then saves you having to hunt around within the case study. And it does say the original options chosen. So yet again, something that you need to highlight here. All of these are hooks in the question, telling you the direction that the question is taking you in. If you go for, because he has his original option, then he had an alternative option that he didn't go for. But we're looking at the original option. And the question then basically is, do you believe that he will achieve this objective? So what we want to do here is to calculate his profit for that second year, for 2013, and see whether it comes to £15,000 or higher, or whether it falls below £15,000. That's basically what we're doing. Obviously, if it comes to more than £15,000, he will achieve his objective. If it comes to less than £15,000, he won't. That's really all we're looking at here. Okay, so let's scroll back up now to figure 1, remembering that we're looking for the calculation for the second year of trading, 2013. Now, I thought this was a particularly difficult paper because although it tells you to go to figure 1, not all of the information is actually in figure 1, which I think is a little bit nasty. So you do have to be cautious about this. You do need to make sure that you read on a little bit or read a section just before the table, just to be sure that you've got all the information that you need. Okay, now here's figure 1. We're going for the option that he chose, which is this option here in the first column. So he rejected that option, so we're not interested in that one. And what we're looking at is whether or not he will achieve his £15,000 in his second year. So what we have to do is a calculation for profit. Now profit obviously is total revenue minus total costs. So we're going to have to be calculating the total revenue for the second year, and we're going to have to be taking away the total costs. Okay, so let's have a look at all the different aspects of this. First of all, we can see here that the selling price of the t-shirt is £9.20. Now that's going to form part of our total revenue. It's £9.20, the price times the quantity gives you total revenue. So we've got the price there, £9.20. Now what we need to look at is the quantity, the number of sales he's going to make in the second year in 2013. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because what you can see here is that it tells you that the expected sales are 9,000 units per annum. However, that's 9,000 units per annum during the first year. Now, if you read a little bit further on down, it's actually at the top of the next page, you will see a secondary piece of information here. It's in the second paragraph. Based on his forecast of sales increasing by 30% each year, Pierre produced the cash flow forecast for the first 3 years. So therefore, what they are saying is that, well, actually, it's not going to be 9,000 in the second year in the year 2013. It's going to be 9,000 in 2012, but it's then going to increase by 30%. So what you need to do is the price times the quantity, and then to increase that by 30%. Okay, so that's the first piece of information that you're going to have to deal with, which is calculating the total revenue. Then we need to look at the total costs. Now, again, the information is broken up here, which I think is a little bit nasty. First of all, we need to be looking at variable cost, and this is a variable cost in here. The purchasing high quality t-shirts at £3.29 each. Obviously, the more t-shirts he sells, the higher the variable cost, so it'll be £3.29 for each t-shirt that he sells. Once again, we're not looking at 9,000 sales, are we? We're looking at 9,000 plus the extra 30% in the second year. In the first year, we'd be looking at 9,000, but we're looking at the second year, 2013. So once again, you're going to have to do your 9,000 times, you're going to have to increase that 9,000 by 30% before you multiply it by your £3.29. However, there is even further information that you have to take into account a little bit further down again on the next page. So if we scroll down to the second page again, I say a particularly difficult paper, I thought, because the information is all over the place. It says in this line here, in addition to the cost of the t-shirt, which is the £3.29 we were just looking at, Pierre's other variable costs, labour, power and printing costs, would be 50p per t-shirt. So in addition to the £3.29, you have to add in another 50p. Okay? So up here where we've got quality of t-shirts, or t-shirts being purchased, high quality t-shirts being purchased £3.29, that's part of your variable costs. Then further on down, you've also got your 50p, which is another part of your variable costs. And don't forget that has to be multiplied by the quantity for 2013. Okay, the final thing then that we have to do, so we have to find out your total revenue by looking at the price times the sales, take away the variable costs by calculating the variable cost times the sales, and then we have to also deduct the fixed costs. Now in the table it tells you that the rent premises are £20,000 per annum. However, that's not the end of the story. That is a fixed cost, but that's not the end of the story with regards to fixed costs. You may have already noticed, as you scroll down to the second page, that there's a further mention of fixed costs, and that is that in this line here, Pierre estimated that fixed costs, including rent, so including that £20,000 in the table, would be £48,000 per annum. So therefore, the total fixed costs for the year are going to be £48,000. Now, as I say, there's a lot of information in there to deal with, but if you can do a calculation which gives you the correct level of profit for the year 2013 for Pierre, and then you can go back to the question and say, well, this means he will reach his primary objective, or this means he won't reach his primary objective. That's going to put you on level 3, giving you at least 5 or 6 marks, and it's also going to give you at least 2 evaluation marks. So that calculation will, if it's correct, will give you up to approximately 7 marks out of your 15. But what I'd like you to do now is to put this on pause and have a go at calculating profit for the year 2013 and see how you get on with that. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Here's the question up here again. So Pierre set himself one primary objective to achieve an annual profit of £15,000 in the second year. Do you believe that he will achieve this objective? Here's the information that we needed down here from the table, together with the additional information that was on the next page. What I would suggest that you do, even though it's an essay, I would still write down the calculation. So profit in 2013 is total revenue minus total cost. Just show the examiner that you know what you're doing, show them that you know where you're coming from. Because there are so many bits and pieces down here that it's quite likely that you might actually leave one of these little bits of information out, which would mean then that your answer would be incorrect. However, if you can show that you've used the correct approach, you will still pick up good marks for this. Okay, now the next line of working should be £9.20, which is the selling price, times 11,700. Now that 11,700 comes from the fact that we've got 9,000 here being increased by 30%. So what you would have to do is find 30% of 9,000, which is 2,700, and then add that on to your 9,000, giving you a total of 11,700. Okay, we take away the fixed costs, which is your figure down here, the £48,000 per annum. And then we take away the total variable costs, which is £3.29 plus the 50p, £3.79, times multiplied by, again, that 11,700, which is your 9,000 units here, plus 30% of 9,000, which is that figure down there. Obviously use your calculator, make sure you get it correct, but those are the figures that you should be looking at. Again, make sure to show all of your workings, because you could make an error. And the answer that you should have come up with then should be total revenue 107,640 minus 48,000 fixed costs minus £44,343 variable costs, giving you a profit in 2013 of 15,297. What you then do is you go on to say, this means that Pierre, based on these figures, this means that Pierre will achieve his annual profit of £15,000 in his second year. He will achieve his primary objective. And that calculation, together with the statement, which says that he will, would then give you approximately 7 marks out of your 15. Obviously, again, provided that everything is being calculated correctly. Okay, now obviously you want to try and get more than 7 out of 15, and the way to do that is to develop your argument a bit further. The first thing to do would be to have a look at that 30%. You know, how realistic is it? Where did it come from? Where did that forecast come from? Is it really going to grow at 30% each year? That could form the first part of your argument, and by discussing that, then that will take you I beg pardon, that will take you up into level 4 for reasonable analysis. You could even rework it and say, you know, if it only grew by 20%, he's not going to get 15,000 at all. He's actually going to fall below his objective. So everything hangs on this 30% being correct. So this is a major argument that you might want to present. In addition to that, you might want to go back to the case study and have a look at any other information that you feel might be relevant. Okay, so what I'll do now is leave you to have a good look through the case study and see how can you develop your argument even further, both by looking at that 30% and looking at other aspects of the case study that will help to indicate whether or not he is actually going to achieve £15,000 in the year 2013. Okay, I hope you found that helpful. Have a go at this now, and if you're still unsure about it, have a word with your teacher.